We're back.
Back,
It's been a
back,
minute.
back. Yes, it has. Yes, it has. My good man, how
Been a
have you been
second.
doing? How have you been doing?
I'm okay. I'm doing well. Life throws you curveballs every now and again, so you got to deal with them, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Same here. Same here.
yeah. But we're doing okay. We are. Oh wait. Oh, holy shit. Sorry. I tried to do something on my Facebook page, and that's why I got confused. I'm trying to share it right now, so you just have to bear with me. But no, I've been good. I mean, I've been all right, hanging in, working a lot, plugging away. You know that. Listen, we got something special for November, so
hmm
I am I'm
hmm
working my tail off because that barbecue ain't gonna pay for itself.
Hey,
Um,
it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be a good trip. It's gonna be definitely something worth to
so
see. Hopefully, we can get some live footage for you guys for that particular time frame. I know it's gonna be something that you guys would want to see, more or less, us side by side, if that can be a thing. So definitely want to take a look into that. But we're coming back. We have a lot of things that we not necessarily miss, but we've been looking at and seeing. And of course, today's episode would definitely kind of play into some of the things that we've been watching. Um,
yes,
Here
yes.
lately, there's been a weekly episodic episode of Who Killed WCW. Some of the most interesting interviews, some of the most finger pointing, and then the accountability bug just kind of flies out the window with some things as well. So it's just like a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different things as far as what killed that company and what made it um not necessarily go down the drain, but just kind of what set it afire, what started a fire, and what kind of kept it
Mhm.
going. So, but that's what the premise of this episode is. So we're not necessarily going to talk about that because at the end of the day, there were still some good things about WCW that
Yeah,
a
we're
lot of
gonna talk.
people tuned into. I myself, even after certain dates that you can say certain things kind of just led to the demise. I was still an avid watcher. I was avid all the way up until I seen Shane McMahon walk out there and say, "I now own WCW," and I think that was something that I was just like, "What?" Like I was just kind of like everybody else. So because I didn't want to see it go, even though it was definitely at a point to where it was not once what it was. Um, and during that particular period of time, not just that particular time, but WCW had a lot of good things to offer. So this particular
So
episode
many.
is definitely going to kind of highlight some of the things that it kind of brought to everybody's attention, and some of the things that it actually brought over to the wrestling business now. So at the end of it all, WCW didn't only spark some of the careers of some of your favorites, but at the same time, it also sparked a lot of the ideas that are some of the wrestling inventions today. So, um,
It sparked like the greatest era in wrestling history. You could argue. I mean,
absolutely, absolutely,
WCW was confused.
the Monday Night
Yeah, I
Wars
loved.
were everything.
Yeah, it was it. It was it. And I love the. But going back to the who killed WCW, we're not going to talk about the top five things that killed WCW because they already discussed it. But it was a fantastic series. I really like the fact some of the people they got on there, the behind the scenes people, because you really got a perspective of how nobody at that company wanted WCW to succeed.
hmm
It was like three people, and I mean, I think everybody's trying to place blame, but I think Bischoff said it best. It was death by a thousand cuts. I
Absolutely.
think that was the. I mean, there was so much that went into it, and but I always like what Nash has to say because he's always so smooth. I loved. I mean, I I, I loved I love the accountant guy with the southern accent. He
Mm.
said that if he got caught helping WCW, it would ruin his career. Like, oh, geez. But like that, I mean, and there's a lot of blame to go around from a lot of people. I think it starts with the corporate structure. I think, because you take a look at creative control and guaranteed contracts and this and that, that all stems from like the structure of who approved that sort of thing. And I mean, the guaranteed contracts ended up hurting them because it was such a huge nut that you had to pay. Like Vince's salaries are probably a bit less because he didn't pay as much guaranteed. But like they're paying like Bret Hart $3 million. Still, all respect to Bret, he's worth it. But I mean, like, there's going to come a when it was great when you're on top, but when you're not, you still have all that big payroll. But yeah, there was. I mean, it just didn't seem like it wasn't destined for success. You know, I think in the end it was never. It just didn't seem like it was run properly. And I mean, yeah, like did Hogan have creative control help? Not necessarily, but I mean, Hogan being there certainly helped because he's drew the most money. Like, but just wild. But they were getting good ratings even at the end. They were still getting twos, and they were putting out a horrible product. Like late 2000s WCW was not very good. I will admit though, the last 3 pay-per-views I don't dislike. I don't dislike them. They were actually okay.
I'm not gonna lie.
Like, Sin, Super Brawl Revenge, and Greed were pretty good. But I was an avid watcher, so I miss it. It was because it was a different product. Like it had a different, like, obviously even when it boomed in '96, it was different than the WWF. And then when WWF got super good, it was different then. It was always the alternative. Maybe it wasn't always a good alternative, but it was always the alternative. So, but I loved the documentary. I thought it was awesome. I thought it painted a good picture. I don't think there's one, there's not one gunman with this thing. There's a whole bunch of people. And I mean, like the standards and practices thing. Like, I mean,
I think when you have things that kind of change what wrestling is, because at some point, even you can hear when they were talking about how it kind of went down the drain. It was one of those situations where it seemed like they got away from wrestling altogether and they got to more performing. And that was something that was like not necessarily appealing. I noticed that it was less matches that were getting complete than anything. And then, of course, like you say, nothing had a finish. Everything was, we're out of time. And then they kind of just kept going. I remember that distinctly. And I remember every week I was always watching next week because there was no finish to the last week. That was one of the things that kind of kept me interested to see. But it also kind of became annoying because, of course, you never got to see who won the match. There was never no definitive winner to anything. And every week there was controversy and everything. And it seemed like you couldn't keep it going for what that was. And that's not necessarily something that I can see being successful going however long it's going. So, they mixed it up a little bit. But I think that's the big thing that you can kind of take from that as one of the pillars of it just kind of falling apart. But
they weren't good with finishes.
Yeah, they weren't good in certain aspects at all. But at sometimes you would get. That's the thing. They were so bad at finishes, and people kept watching. It's almost like everybody kept giving them second chances to keep messing them over. Like, it was just ridiculous at some point because it went from like Starrcade being that shitty finish to everything for the next 2 years being a shitty finish after that. So it was just like we just kept watching, and then finally it got to a point to where Eric Bischoff told you about an actual finish, and you wanted to go watch it. That's literally what happened. So we kind of can sit up there and say there was a death by 1,000 cuts look, but those cuts were so powerful at the right time. They were timed perfectly too. Because, of course, if you don't have the financial backing of somebody who's sitting up there saying that I'm not going to pay you any more to do the things that you already do, and if I allow you to buy out, then, of course, I'm not going to give you TV time. So that's kind of like,
the whole thing was cooked.
It was cooked from the beginning. And I think that it was fun while it lasted. I appreciate everybody who had anything to do with that company in a positive light, simply because, of course, as a wrestling fan, they brought not only my imagination to the table and make me believe things that, of course, to find out later was more of a job, but at the same time, it was still great physical action acting,
Yeah.
entertainment. They gave you everything every night. And sometimes it looks like, they put the business before themselves in a lot of aspects, and a lot of them got hurt by this particular downfall of this company. A lot of talent,
Yeah. Some guys you never saw again.
yes, a lot of talent didn't come back. Like, Alex Wright didn't come back after a while. You didn't really see
Yeah.
him pretty much anymore. Um,
Lash LaRue.
Lash LaRue. I was just about to say Lash LaRue was another one. Even though he was a young and upcoming talent in the later 2000s and the 1999 kind of year, it was just like, you had some people who were, really, really good in the ring and, were up and coming and trying to make a name for themselves in the business. And WCW gave a lot of people that opportunity at points and times. So there's some pay-per-views that you can go back and just watch from cover to cover. And some of your favorite wrestlers started out there, wrestled there for a long period of time, just kind of gave good matches. And of course, with the bad look in the WCW, they ended up jumping ship and going elsewhere. But I think that's one of the kind of testaments to the talent pool that WCW had. It was amazing. It was absolutely one of the things that you can kind of say that, hey, this is,
Look at this.
this is one of those
sneaky.
top. I don't know how we're sneaky, Kareem. I really don't.
We posted this on
we
public.
posted this on live, so I think that's how that works. But no, like I say, WCW's talent pool was just absolutely amazing. From the Steiners to Booker T to the luchadors that they had, the countless luchadors. They had everybody from New Japan who would come over and still wrestle and then just kind of go back and forth. They had people who would wrestle in different promotions and kind of come over and still wrestle in WCW for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so they would get a lot of exposure that way. And a lot of WCW wrestlers would go overseas and get a lot of exposure there too. So that was another thing that WCW was doing that was really, really good at the time. I just think that, like with the downfall, you kind of have to glaze over the fact that they had a lot of good things going. So
so many good stuff. So they just, I loved like they were just, I loved the like you said, the talent that they had, because it was so diverse. I think that was one of the things. I mean, the one thing that I was surprised about, they mentioned about the Hogan and Flair Uncensored 2000 show. They're like they main evented pay-per-views a year apart. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kareem. Yeah.
That's all.
But like that was where I think if they had to start pushing different guys to the top spot, like, I mean, and not even just like Eddie and Benoit, but like they hadn't started really pushing Scott Steiner to the top yet.
Yes.
I think they might have had a bit more interest. I don't think it would have saved the promotion, because ultimately, if AOL merger goes through, they're gonna kill it. Like it's over, because they didn't want wrestling. But I think it probably could have helped. I mean, like obviously Hulk and them kind of were there a bit too. Those matchups were there a bit too long. Like I think there could have been a better way you used Hulk. Like didn't have him on TV as much. When he came back, it was a special. I always had an idea years later about when Hogan, that if would have been cool if he came in WCW, like he only made a few pay-per-views a year and like, a special attraction, but came back a few times a year. But when he came back, you didn't know if he was going to come back as Hollywood or come back as the red and yellow. That would have been so cool. That would have been that. See, that would have made it like, but like, again, like he'd reached a point, but they're paying him so much money, they had to run him out there. Like, that's the thing. It's like a football team or a basketball team is paying so-and-so, X amount of dollars. Like,
he's got to play.
He's got to play. So, and that, but it was like, again, you had Hogan and Savage, and that was why they really kicked off and succeeded. And that's why people want the war now. They're like, whoa, we want the, listen, back then, like Hogan, Savage, like Flair, those three for sure. But you had Sting, you had Luger, you had like a lot of top guys. They had big stars. And, and that's why they really were able to kick off and do so well initially. But I mean, and the NWO and all that stuff. But it sure wasn't the Dungeon of Doom that made them
Absolutely not. Now, all due respect to Kevin Sullivan and the guys, but god damn, that wasn't it, Jack. I'm sorry.
The
That
dungeon, the Dungeon of Doom was better when it was later, when it was like Ming and the Barbarian,
yeah.
as opposed to the Shark and the Zodiac, and that Conan was in there for some weird reason. Like these, at least they were real guys, as opposed to like
It
the
was the
Shark, the
most
Zodiac,
mixed bag
Kamala.
of shit like I've ever seen in my life. Conan had no choice but to go join the WC. I mean the NWO after that because I just was like that. But shout out to
Shout out
Conan
to
by the way
Conan,
with the follow
follower of the
back.
show.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you.
following back. Thank you for your follow. I caught you at a good time, but of course, like that was a weird time, of course, because you had a lot of different people who were just kind of mixed around. Like they had the giant kind of thrown in sometimes, and they had a lot of other different people in and a lot of other factions. WCW had a period of time where they kind of just threw away gimmicks. And when they threw away gimmicks because they couldn't really do them, they kind of got everybody's name out there, literally. Like you didn't know who certain people were because they came out with these bullshit names, the Taskmaster, all the weird ass gimmicks that they came out with back in the day. So
Glacier.
Gla- Glacier,
Glacier.
Glacier,
There's no way in hell that could have lived up to the hype. That was the
it couldn't.
craziest hype video
It
ever.
couldn't. It couldn't live up to the hype, but at the same time, this is what it was good for. Like this is another thing WCW was good for. When they wanted to push a superstar, they pushed that motherfucker over Mount Everest. And it was anybody. It didn't matter who it was. Everybody got a super big push, even if they didn't deserve it. It was some people who
Yeah,
like
but
you can honestly say that,
most
I
guys got
don't
to
have
push to the middle, though. Like guys didn't get it pushed to the top. Like
you
Glacier
know who
wasn't
got a
main event pay per view.
you know who got a push to the top, but didn't get pushed to the top in as far as being in pay-per-views? Kurt Hennig. When he came over, they gassed him up as if he was gonna wrestle that day. Then he got into the war games thing. Is he in the NWO? Is he not? Then it kind of was just like, is he gonna be a horseman? And it was just it was cool because of course, Hennig could have played a heel or a babyface. And I think with him coming in, it was just like I really want him to pick a side because he can run the company at this point. He was that good to me.
He was really good,
Kurt Hennig was
and he was
that good to me.
and he was a star. He was a star.
Oh,
He was the main
absolutely.
event level guy. So,
Like
I did.
I don't say now. Here's one person I'm on the fence about as far as joining the NWO. And the reason why I say this is because his persona is nothing but NWO. But I can definitely see him having a career outside of them and still being extremely successful. So it's just, it was a catch-22 with him. Like I say, he's a very good heel, very good baby face, but better as a heel, like a heel that you can actually like.
I mean, I think they crapped the bed on Mr. Perfect track and field gimmick when he threw himself his own pass.
Yeah,
which Patrick Mahomes probably going to do next.
Jamal Charles did that first. Google it.
Oh, really? Okay. But was Bret Hart, like, they never really pushed Bret Hart the way he should have been pushed
at all.
And I don't know why. I don't know why it was. And I've heard Bischoff say his heart wasn't into it, no pun intended. But I'm just like, that was one that I never got because I mean, I was there the night he became champion against Benoit, and I was there that night. It was a great crowd. It was wild. Vince Russo booked it, so it was like, wrestling booking on ADHD or something like that. It was just
everything was there. It was just,
and you watch it back, and it was like it had some good stuff, like some good matches, and it had some just awful stuff. So, but George, WCW was near and dear to your heart because that's why you got into wrestling. When did you first watch WCW?
My first WCW probably was literally at the end of Surfer Sting, like
So
right around
96, 95,
94. 94. Like, so I would
94.
say the reason why I say 94 at the end of Surfer Sting, because of course he was Surfer Sting a lot longer than what I knew. But like
Yeah,
right around the end of him just not necessarily being appreciated. What caught my eye about it was him like it was more of a drama with him. I noticed that he never said nothing at that particular point as far as how he felt. He would just be, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Everybody had that Hulk Hogan mantra, but he was the
yeah,
first person for me to really go down that dark path and just be like, I'm about to change my whole persona because I
yeah,
don't feel bright like these colors anymore. So it just kind
yeah.
of was like the first realization for me that somebody was really just in it. Like, I don't want to do this like this anymore. And when he changed it, it was like watching his growth, watching his, production, watching his, his move set kind of change and how it kind of dictated how he was moving in the ring and things like
Mm,
that. Then it kind of got me interested in what happened prior to what happened earlier for
yeah.
him to even feel like this and how long he's been like this. And that's when I discovered the real Ric Flair, the real Dusty Rhodes, the real Rick Rude, like the people that were coming in and coming into the business and trying to come in and not only be like showboating figures. Like Ric Flair was a heel that he made being a bad boy look cool for white guys. Not even gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Like he put them rings on. You couldn't talk shit to him because he was gonna talk shit to you first, and you had no choice but to believe it, baby. And that's just how he had an aura about him that just read like you can't fuck with me. And of course, just kind of watching that stuff build up throughout the years kind of made my love for WCW deep. So I think that one of
Yeah.
the things about WCW that I love also is some of the history behind it. It goes so deep that you really don't think
Mhm.
about how deep it actually goes sometimes because of
Yeah,
course we always talk about the 83 weeks being the best part of WCW when really WCW had a lot of great things. Like I keep saying, it had a lot of great
yeah. A
things
long
about it
time.
that was a long time before, it actually got to the point to where people really started watching. So, if you get into those things and kind of see some of the history of, WCW and like, just kind of get into some of the previous years of WCW and kind of watching it grow up a little bit and kind of coming through the AWA and all those other factions and all those other promotions and things, like you can see, it was supposed to be big at some point. It was a lot of work to get to where it was. And so everybody kind of seemed to, I feel like it got too big too fast in a sense.
Uh, I started watching WCW in '91 when we got TBS up
Hmm.
here, and I was pretty lucky that like I watched it all the way through. And as I said, up here in Canada, Nitro was on Tuesdays because Raw was on Mondays, and it always killed Nitro up here, no matter what. Even if they're sending TL Hopper up here, it's still killed. So I got to see both. I didn't have to flip, which was really awesome. And I just noticed like just the wrestling, like it was a different. Like I watched WWF, and that's what I watched. But like there were lots guys who were a lot smaller, less gimmicks, you
Hmm.
know. Which it was so, and I liked any wrestling. They still had gimmicks, but it was like less pronounced. You didn't have as many, and just it was a different product, and I loved it. I watch any wrestling, so I was all in. And I love Surfer Sting. Like I wasn't as big a fan of the Crow Sting. I mean, I get the appeal, and he was successful with it, which is great, and he was great. Don't get me wrong, but I love Surfer Sting. Surfer Sting was so good. Like you tune in Saturday night to watch Sting because he was like the Ultimate Warrior, but a real guy. The Ultimate Warrior was kind of like a,
Exactly.
like he was a real human, but he didn't look human. Like he was just insane, and it was awesome. I mean, he drew a ton of money, and good for him. But Sting was like a real dude. You could tell he was a real guy. Just his feuds that he had. Um, were amazing. Like so, I liked it from the jump as soon as I saw it, and I was fortunate. I watched everything, like Power Hour, Saturday Night,
Hmm.
freaking. Then when Nitro got there, I watched Nitro. See, oh well, good planning though. But no, I loved it. So, but now we're going to talk about the top 5 things we liked about WCW. George, I'm going to let you go first.
So to be honest, like one of my favorite things about WCW was some of the pay-per-view events that they kind of put on. WWE
Mm-hmm.
wasn't doing everything that they were doing.
Yeah.
They did have a lot of pay-per-views that were over the top, but one of my favorites is one that WWE has incorporated today, which is War Games. One of my
Yeah.
favorites.
We're going to just go.
It's so good. It has evolved exactly where it needs to be. I think the fact that you will never understand how good War Games was until you actually watch some of those matches that precede us. Like I remember they had a War Games with both the NWOs and the Four Horsemen, and then they had one where the Warrior came back and him and Diamond Dallas Page were grouped together, and it was just like you're watching all these guys, and it's just like how are they gonna make this work? It's two rings, it's a cage. They got one side locked up, they got the other side, and they're ready to go. They're ready to get at it. Like that was better than the elimination chamber before the elimination chamber, if you think about it. Because
Yeah.
of course, you didn't have the pods essentially around the ring, but you definitely had a great way to start a match without having interference, but you had the people that you wanted to interfere there if they were going to interfere. If they were going to have a
Well,
fight against somebody, I want all of them to be here, but you got to get them in there at a certain time. And it kind of worked out the best way possible because, of course, some of those scenarios, you had some great betrayals. You had some great, setups for other title matches. You had, some, beefs that was finally ended because, of course, once you get into war games, ain't no talking shit after that. Everything
no.
just happened. So it was a lot of good things that came out of war games.
Yeah. I love the war games. I love the concept. Remember the war games from Wrestle War '91 is one of the better ones. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's the Horsemen against the Sting's team. Then they did one the next year, which was the Dangerous Alliance against Sting's team,
Hmm.
and those were like really good. I just watched one recently. I forget what it was on. It might have been on the network, but about it was like 1987, and it was like Arn, Tully, um, might have been Ole. I think Ole was in it. Um, and against like Dusty, Nikita, the
Nikita,
Road Warriors,
yeah.
Paul Ellering, but it was the one where they have J.J. Dillon up and they clothesline him. It comes down his shoulder. You can just tell he's like dead, absolutely just dead. And but it was a great concept and it was good. It was a Dusty invention. Like, Dusty made it, created it, and it was like the bad guys always won the coin toss every single time,
Every single time.
never
Yeah.
failed because that's the way you did it, and nobody really noticed. Nobody ever really gave a shit because you knew eventually somebody get in, but like just that whole the 5 minute period, and then you just like every 2 minutes some guy comes in, and you like you had 3-on-2, and then you have multiple different and then they all get in there, and it's like just
Then this
mad
big
craziness.
madness, just pure
Yeah,
madness.
it's just insane. War Games is awesome. So, what's your second? What else you got?
You know, the thing about WWE, they always had a good celebrity crop. The thing
Yeah,
about WCW that I like personally, now of course this is
yeah.
something that not everybody else is going to like, but I did like it. I like how many celebrities they had on the main show. At some point, it did look like Celebrity Deathmatch because to have Master P have a whole gang of motherfuckers who didn't wrestle show up and try to beat the shit out of a whole bunch of people. Then you had Karl Malone, who was definitely fresh off the bench of somebody's Utah Jazz team, out here fighting Dennis Rodman, who just got out here and
Kevin
won the
Green,
championship.
Reggie White.
Kevin Green, Reggie White. You even had, so one of the things about WCW as well, it seems like everybody who can get into a sport kind of had a real hit in WCW at one point in time. Because even Mongo McMichael, he went from announcing to actually wrestling for a little while, and it was just like, if you play any sport, you could have had a shot in WCW for a little bit. So, if you had any athletic ability, WCW is giving you a shot. And that's, I kind of appreciated that. I kind of appreciate that they had a lot of people who were interested in wrestling, because that's the thing. Like, they weren't just people who they just brought in just because they were certain names. No, they actually liked wrestling enough to be on TV. That's kind of, in my mind, one of my favorite things. I just wish they could have did it in a better light, simply because, of course, they seem to kind of do stupid shit after getting celebrities in the door. No knock on David Arquette. He didn't ask to do none of that shit. But him being champion is probably the dumbest thing I've ever heard a
Yeah,
company
well,
do in my goddamn
Jay
life.
Leno beating up Hulk Hogan. I'm like, come on, Jay Leno, like,
Jay
like,
Leno, like, you got a lot of people who are interested in wrestling. Like, it was the hottest thing in the world at one point. And like I say, WCW gave a lot of people their shine as far as getting on the stage and being able to kind of be a part of the show as well. But that was one of their downfalls, like I say. It was just kind of, it was too much, because then you had to go back to regular writing when you couldn't get David Arquette on the show because he was doing a fucking movie, or if you couldn't get an NFL player, to come on because training camp had started. Like, when you started to actually have to write real wrestling again, that's where WCW started to fall apart again, because it didn't have a, they didn't know how to do gimmicks, man, but they knew how to get people in the doors. They knew how to get butts in the seats. They knew how to make it hot. So, and I love that for it. I love that aspect of trying to get over celebrities that necessarily aren't even in wrestling ilk. They just kind of
mhm.
walk in and kind of be a part of this show, like I say. So those are my two. You
All
go
right.
ahead. I mean, you got. I'm pretty sure you got some favorites that not everybody's thinking about as well. So what
Yeah.
you got for me?
WCW Saturday Night. I love that
Mhm.
show. Like, that's the one I first started watching when the WCW started, and it was good all the way through. But it was really good for like 1996 to like it ended in 2000, 97 to 2000, because somebody posted on Twitter today. You had like Eddie Guerrero against Psychosis. You had like the Villanos against El Dandy and
Mhm.
Silver King. You had like all sorts of different guys. Like, you saw like guys like Barry Darsow on there, and different. They had kind of their own storylines. But like, you'd see a lot of the mid card guys appear on there, and the show was just, it was really really good, and it was really simple. It was just wrestling. It was like different announcers, different tone, different feel. I loved it. I loved the talent on it, and just the whole production of the show. To me, it was always I always liked the show, and I watched it all the time. Anytime I could, I watched it. So WCW Saturday, and this one kind of dovetails in. I wanted to do like a year thing, but I had to put the mid card, the
Yes.
especially like during the Monday Night War, because I think that's more where we're kind of targeting a lot of this stuff is more the Monday Night War. But like the mid card was great, like, and that includes the cruiserweights, and like they had a really good mid card. Like I thought about the 1998 television title. You had Saturn involved, Booker T involved, Finley involved,
Hmm.
Rick Martel, a couple other people. Like, I think Eddie Guerrero was in that mix. Like, just different guys who were really, really good. And so you had that, and you had the cruiserweights. You had guys like, I think back to Spring Stampede when you opened with like a Rey Mysterio. I forget who he worked on that show, but he worked somebody good. And then Ultimo Dragon. I think Ray worked Ultimo Dragon, and then you had like Steve Regal against Prince Iaukea. Just like, there was a time when they had really good mid cards, like the middle of the card, the undercards were like fantastic. And I think that's one thing that WCW that really made them good, up until kind of wasn't. But for a
You know
while, they
who I
had the
just
best undercard.
realized was in WCW, and I forgot completely about this.
Who?
Bob Sapp,
He was with the power plant, yeah. Bob Sapp.
the Beast was his name.
Oh
I
yeah.
forgot all about that. And that guy was just, huge. He's a mountain of a man. So at the
Have
end
you
of
ever
the day,
seen
if you
his
don't know who
MMA
Bob Sapp,
fights?
oh yeah, first of all, that is unfair. Get them dudes out of there because they never weigh up to what he weighs.
No, but he gets his ass kicked a lot because he's good in the first round, but he'll go crazy, bananas in the first round.
And
After
then
that, he's gassed out.
yeah,
But
he's
because
out of
he's huge, but he was huge in Japan. Like he was a massive star in Japan. Like he's a monster. Yeah, but he never made TV. Like it was weird. Like they had
there.
a few guys signed like that, just random dudes who never made TV. Like really odd. So I got WCW Saturday night and I got the mid card. So what are we thinking for the number 5?
I mean, I want to say
I didn't have any. I didn't have any.
Lance Storm. Like that's a very interesting flex. Um,
I do like DDP. I like DDP a lot.
I like DDP too. I want to say one of the better things about the so hear me out. So hear me out. I want to say the creative, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because the creative were willing to try shit that WWE was never gonna try. None of this shit was ever gonna get put on TV. WCW had to try shit to a point to
Eh,
where they was giving live shows a lot of good shit and a lot of bad shit at the same time. It just so happened that a lot of the bad shit really outshined the good shit. As you can
well,
tell,
I
in
mean,
the later 2000s, they had a lot of people who, could say, oh, it was a lot of bullshit and a lot of this and a lot of that. But they had a lot of tag teams that could have made a bigger impact at some point. Um, Chronic was a bunch of big ass motherfuckers just running around beating people up, you know, just shit like that. Like they were trying to do things. Your favorite group, Conan and Rey Mysterio without the mask,
oh, the filthy
the
animals.
Filthy
Oh
Animals,
God,
yes.
I hated Ray without the mask. Just hated it without the mask.
And that was one thing they
Like,
kept trying too. They kept going with the trying to peel the mask off the luchadors. And I know
yeah,
that
they do with
that was the thing that was kind of weird for a moment, but it kind of made for great TV as far as you can give that particular narrative, but you never actually take it off of them. Like the match with Eddie and Ray at Halloween Havoc, that was a
yeah,
great match because they kind of tore the mask, but then they didn't take it fully off of Ray. They made him fight to keep it on. So at the end of the day, that was something that you can kind of see that, a lot of people were not necessarily happy about, but they kind of made it a great focal point and kind of brought a little bit of earnest to, luchadors wearing the mask in some pay-per-view. So some of the
yeah,
creative, I would say, was actually good for
yeah.
trying some shit.
I was gonna say like matches and stuff, but it's kind of the same thing. Is that you look at the matches they had Ray and Eddie, and you look at some of the other ones. Like for a long time, they did a great job. I mean, until the thing just got, you know, completely. But there was always a gem in WCW. Like every pay per view, you always got something. Like even if the whole pay per view wasn't good, they always gave you something. So I
I'm about to
appreciate it.
on the spot you right now.
What?
I'm about to on the spot you. So outside of the top 5 wrestlers in WCW, you got your Hogan, you got Sting, you got Luger, you got Booker T, you got Diamond Dallas. Outside of those 5,
Flair.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Give,
think
give,
there's a
give me four.
uh,
Give me four.
Savage is another one.
Okay.
Outside of the main guys. I get what you're saying. Outside of the main guys. I
Mhm.
got you. Don't worry, it won't be one of these guys. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. So give me four good. Give me a four. Let's do this. Let's do this. A WCW 4v4, and we only can use people from the 2000 roster
Oh, okay.
because they
2000
had a lot of
roster.
talent. They had a lot of talent.
Okay, so I pick four.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm
And we got to snake it
no.
because I don't want you to get four good straight ones. You know,
Okay,
let's do something real quick. Let's do something this for you guys because of course we
okay.
love WCW a lot. So let's
Uh,
go ahead and put together because of course at this particular point in the
I
show
got
they were doing
yeah.
anything. So let us do a
I
four
got
v four.
I got my first one. Okay, let's just do a war games. This is the fucking war games.
That's
This
what we're
is
gonna
it.
call this. This is the war
Yeah, the
games. All
war
right, I got
games.
this.
Okay, so I'll get the first pick. I'm going with Mike Awesome. I think Mike Awesome would have been so much better in WCW. I mean, they made him a fat chick thriller. They made him part of Team
I
Canada.
remember
He's from
that.
Florida. It's stupid stuff. But like, you watch that dude in ECW. He was a 6'6", 300-pound dude who could do crazy stuff in the ring. Like, he
Hmm.
was talented. You had to give him a mouthpiece, but he was like he could like he was so and he was big, but he was athletic and could work with a small guy. So like my guy, like you look at the guy in the undercard, my guy's Mike Austin.
Okay, okay. I got to go. Big Papa Pump is my hookup. Holla if you hear me.
Oh,
Scott Steiner was the epitome of the physical freak at any point in time in 1999, 1994, 1995, 1996. You pick a year, Scott Steiner was buff and ready to go. But Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner, was his own being. You get him on the mic, and it was dynamite. Steiner math will always be the best math in the world. I'm gonna tell you right now, the big booty daddy, it was always in the on. Look, he had everybody eating out the palm of his hands. The thing is, he was always hidden in the back, kind of not overshadowed by his brother, not necessarily overshadowed by everything else, because some of the moves he did in the ring was so just only you can do that, Scott. You
the
do know that.
Frankensteiner when he was like 260, like he was like ridiculously big, and he was doing the Frankenstein, like jumping up, like it was insane.
Like everybody thinks Braun Breaker's so good for doing that. I'm gonna tell you right now, his uncle was a bad motherfucker. So
He knows that. Both of those Steiners were. Like,
yes,
I did you watch the A&E on him? They did a biography on him the other night.
I didn't see it
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. If you get it, if you probably catch it on demand. It was really good. I mean, those dudes were legit. They're amateur wrestlers from Michigan. Like as Kevin Nash once said, he's like friggin'. It's like he's like the Steiners could beat anybody in the world. It's like they just suplex you on your head till you gave up. Like I mean,
Exactly.
like they were
It was just they would
legit
keep
badasses,
going.
but he was just like he was a freak. Like he was just a you look at him, he was a freak. But I mean, like he had good matches and he could talk. I liked him. I always liked Scott Steiner. So that's a good pick.
Got to take the big bad booty daddy on that one. So
Yeah.
of course you have another pick to kind of go through. Let's see what you got. What you got for me?
I'm going with the cat, Ernest Miller. God damn
Okay.
it.
Okay.
like
Okay.
he was funny. Like I always liked him. I went to a bar in college to watch Super Bowl 2000 when James Brown came. Not because James Brown was there, but just because let's go get drunk. Um, but like I liked him. I thought he was an okay wrestler. I thought he was funny. I thought he was good on the microphone, and I liked him. He's an underrated guy.
I'm at a toss up right here, but hopefully I can circle back. But I'm taking this man because, of course, you definitely have to kind of just look at his pedigree throughout the history of WWE, WCW, and everywhere he's been. Ming or Haku, whatever you want to
Oh
call him,
shit!
that
Oh,
man right there was he should have been 10 times bigger than what he actually was simply because he never got the push that WCW should have gave him. He was an amazing wrestler. He had a submission that he could put on anybody, and it didn't take
jizz hell.
much. That tongue and death grip was just two fingers of death, and you was just on the ground. And it was just like he he had an aura about him that just looked like he was unstoppable. He had a great sidekick. Everybody kind of, and he had great hair. He had great hair.
Yeah.
So
Oh, he had a great look. But he was legit as it gets. Like you could have pushed him at any time; it would have been okay because he was good enough. You know.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was
Yeah.
he was ready to go at any point in time. And so
Yeah.
I definitely had to take Ming. So mine rounding out right now, I have Scott Steiner and Ming. I'm really strong and powerhouse heavy right now. So,
All
eat your
right.
heart out,
Well.
guys.
All right. Well, here's who I got coming in next. Fit Finley. Fit Finley.
Fighting Irishman.
A fantastic, like just a great wrestler. A great wrestler, tough as nails. Was like just a great. He was so good. Again, another guy maybe who didn't get the push that he deserved was Fit Finley. Because another guy who was just really good in the ring, could work anybody. Yeah, Fit Finley's on my team. Definitely. Dean Jones just picked Fit Finley.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb here because I need somebody who's just a downright brawler.
Mm-hmm.
Give me Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn was one of the motherfuckers you didn't want to catch in the dark alley. Perry Saturn was definitely one of the motherfuckers that you could see a mile away and be like, if you could pick somebody out in a tough man competition, that's the motherfucker I don't want to fight. Because Perry, he would give you everything you asked for and more. He was hardcore. He was badass. He was literally all them words that you can think of. Perry would punch your ass in the face, and I felt like his punches had punches that had came with him because he was wild, man. Like it looked like he hurt.
Well, 2000. You got it. We're sticking to 2000,
It's
right?
in
So
2000,
Perry
yeah.
Saturn. That was a good one. I like Perry Saturn. He was a good wrestler. He was a real good wrestler. I'm trying to think of who else is next. I'm still mowing around this last pick. Uh, so we can't pick him. I'm gonna go. My initial instinct. I'm gonna go with Canyon. I like, another good guy, another great wrestler, like just so
Hmm.
good in the ring, And again, another guy didn't get pushed like he should have. So that's,
Definitely should have pushed Canyon a
I
lot more.
it had good matches with guys, was really smooth in the ring, and I've heard from people who met him as nothing but a great guy. So definitely, I got Mike Awesome, Ernest Miller, Fit Finley, and Canyon against Scott Steiner, Ming, and to be determined.
Scott Steiner, Ming, uh,
Perry Saturn.
Perry Saturn, and Lance Storm.
Lance Storm. I
The
was going to take
Canadian.
Lance, but
But hey,
yeah,
Lance, you can never sleep on Lance. Lance was amazing. Like
he was
he
really
made.
good.
Look, I put it to you like this: between you, me, and America right now, Lance Storm made me hate Canada, and I'm not personally, people, not personally, but in WCW in that particular area, like he was so good at what he did. He made it look like fuck. Like you can't help but like the guy because he was so good at wrestling. He was really great in the ring, but he honestly kind of
Oh,
takes a
come on,
little bit
Adam.
of a a dig right back at just being one of the better Canadians in the ring. He definitely did what he was supposed to do. He made you hate him. He made you understand that Canada was better than America and all. He just kind of did it. He embodied it. So I loved everything
Told
about
the
Lance
truth.
Storm at that
He
part.
told the absolute truth.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, because the truth can be skewed a lot. So I ain't saying that, but I get what you mean. Now, of course, Adam thinks you betrayed, the country again, and I'm not saying,
Yeah, I did.
very
Bad
much
Canadian.
about that. Um,
Bad Canadian.
that's what 2-0 against you and me versus Canadian wrestlers and American
Yeah.
wrestlers at this particular point. I don't know. I
You
might
just
be a
you
little bit more versed in the countries now at this particular point. I might be.
maybe maybe we
mm,
have better checks than 23 and Me on you. Maybe you got some Canadian in you.
I don't know. The most Canadian I got in me is maple syrup, Jack, and I don't know. Uh, So at the end of the day, I mean, that's a good 4 versus 4 lineup. I'm pretty sure that we can kind of do a lot of digging and seeing if we can kind of put another list together someday. Maybe we can use people like Johnny the Bull next time, and you know, maybe Jim Duggan makes an appearance. Who knows? Never know. But
Jim Duggan, but
2000 WCW was definitely a different time. It was definitely one of those times
yeah,
where it just seemed like it had a bunch of people who didn't really mix, and it just kind of was a hard time to kind of look at. It's kind of like WCW. I mean
this is another
WWE
one.
2005.
Yeah,
Yeah, see it, Steven
yeah.
Regal. You could have we could Van Hammer, Vampiro.
Yeah.
Vampiro he's gonna make an appearance on another countdown that we have coming up here later. I think, like I told you about the if onlys, he might be one of the if
Yeah.
onlys. Might be because Vampiro was good for a while in WCW. You know, he went over on Sting fair and square,
Yeah.
and I kind of
Did
appreciated
he
that.
bury him?
Yeah, that was his thing. He
The
was
thing I
burying motherfuckers.
the thing I remember most about Vampiro was I think it was a match with Sting. I don't know, but I think it was him. I just remember the Tony Schiavone. He's in the tree.
He's in a tree. He's in a tree. Like
I think that was
they
Vampiro.
were yes, they were outside, and he was just randomly in a tree, and he jumped out on Sting, and the cameras was running through the bushes and shit. I remember that distinctly. It was a pay per view.
I liked Vampiro, and to not like as betray my country again. He is a Canadian, um, and so, but he deserved a little bit of a push. I think it was good that he worked Sting. I
Hmm.
think that was a nice run. But I don't know where he was going to go. I don't know if he would have ever been pushed to the top, but again, that was WCW. They had so many guys. Like they had a ton of guys like Jericho, Benoit, Guerrero, Ray. Four of them ended up main eventing WrestleMania.
Right.
I think Jericho did at some point. I know he may not have, but I think he did. Um, and they had them when they were young, and they couldn't elevate it. That was one of their problems is they just weren't able to get certain guys over or didn't want to. So and it was funny because people like talk about like WCW. I mean, if they had started elevating like those guys in Booker T in '99, by 2000 could have been a whole different thing. Like they may have had the next wave if they started elevating them that year, and they did with some of them, but overall they didn't. But like Vampiro's another guy, just to
Hmm.
you know. So anyway, I like this show. It was great. It was great being back.
Oh yeah, it absolutely felt good to kind of get back into the swing of things. Missed you people watching us, getting on our nerves, and we're getting on yours. That's just how life goes. Don't you just love that, folks? But
But
Mike, today was an episode about WCW. So coming up, we
yeah,
have some things that we will talk about that will kind of dig a little bit here, dig a little bit there out of some of these episodes because sometimes you know there's going to be betrayals. There's going to be if onlys. There's going to be if the what ifs because there's a list of
yeah,
wrestlers that have passed that I'm pretty sure that would have been great superstars, and even bigger than what they were. So,
Mhm.
um, just kind of going through the list of shows that we can kind of come up with in the next few weeks. Um,
Yeah.
we'll definitely kind of have to circle back into what actually is happening to the bloodline storyline right now. That is
Ooh,
juicy. As well as the
that's getting.
Judgment Day getting a little bit juicy as well.
Yeah,
So
those are both getting
they
getting thick.
they getting the right type of play right now, and I think that everybody is kind of coming around to the Liv Morgan kind of making her way through the bloodline. I mean, the Judgment Day and kind of messing some things up. You got Brian Breaker
When
going
Rhea comes
wild.
back, she's gonna get one of the biggest pops.
Whose
It's
pop
just
is
gonna
going
be
to be
so
bigger? I got Roman Reigns over her pop.
probably Roman. Like when Roman comes back, it's gonna be massive. Like
I'm gonna be
once you
screaming in
hear,
my living room. I don't know about you, because I'm gonna tell you right now, this year wrestling is literally taking a step forward. Like I'm on real TV now. I deserve to be here again. Like it feels somewhat 1995ish. Like next year is gonna be a year that's gonna be pretty fucking big because it's setting up
or
just
96 to 97,
right,
kind of
right there,
thing.
96, 97. That year was so like people who live that era versus people who talk about it are two different ilks. Like I
I
remember
lived
that
it.
shit. Like I lived it too. Like flipping back and forth, understanding what channel, USA was, what channel, WCW was gonna come on. Like, it it was nothing like it. Like Monday was damn near a fucking holiday for me because channel flipping was just like I'm gonna do that every Monday. And every Monday,
Yeah,
like when I found like I'm from the age group where like we didn't have TVs in every room. Like I wasn't, fortunate like that when I was younger. Now,
yeah,
God willing, I got everything I want and more. So, but now we're at the point to where, when I was little, I had one TV in the house or two TVs in the house, and none of them was in my room. And then when I finally got a TV in my room, boy, you can tell the TV switching, that remote was hot because Monday Night Wars were everything at that particular point in time. So you had a
yeah,
lot of people who were going to school the next day just to imitate being The Rock on performance last night, just imitating being Stone Cold. People going,
yeah,
getting suspended for doing crotch chops, thinking they in DX. Like this was a lifestyle. This is not something that we just was watching. We were doing this shit too. So
yeah,
I think that's the bigger thing about that 96, 97 year. If you lived that, you were going and you were being these people the next day. You were buying the shirt.
yeah,
You were baking the signs. You were sitting up here having nitro parties. Like that's another thing that I loved about WCW is that they really advertise people having fucking parties in their honor. Like that's something that they don't
yeah,
necessarily do all the time. Like WWE kind of did it where they will see, bars down the street from the event, showing off a little bit. Nah, the show is in fucking Pennsylvania, PA. These motherfuckers all the way in somewhere in South Dakota got a camera in a room full of college students with torn shirts on, smelling like sweat and pizza. And like they living this shit. They not doing this shit because they wanted to fucking do it. Like they was living this shit because it was just that hot. WCW
I,
was that fucking hot. It was white hot.
yeah,
It was actually cool. Like the thing about wrestling to me is people always like to kind of say it's fake. People like to say it's these it's a bunch of people in draws fighting. You know what? Guess what? This is the thing about that. When you were a little kid and you was watching this shit, you thought it was cool. You was going to school the next day. You was making your parents buy this shit. You was making your parents get up and do shit that they didn't want to do because you wanted this shit. It's not necessarily the fact that you were doing that, but it's the simple fact that you took the time to go out of your way to understand that you enjoyed something. So for people who enjoy wrestling at all ages, because people enjoy that, people bring their kids there, people bring, you know, family members there. Some people go on
mm,
dates there. I've seen people get married there. So to sit up there and be like wrestling's not cool and all this other shit, sell it to somebody else because I
yeah,
ain't buying it. But at the end of the day, we got
Yeah.
a lot of people who actually would enjoy WCW and enjoy it to this day because of course
Yeah.
it's just that good to us. So I get it. Like I get it. Like people all ages, people, want to have this feeling of enjoying, what it is now. And it's kind of back in that sense. Like, no, it's not the NWA.
Trying.
No, it's not the DX.
No.
But now you have somebody different. Now you have Seth freaking Rollins coming out here and everybody knows who that is. You got people like Damian Priest who is, going to other countries and being a champion as another countryman. Like, I think that people all over the world now see wrestling for what it is. So that audience is not
Yeah.
just, you know, New Hampshire. That audience is not just, Atlanta, Georgia on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's just, it's wrestling again, bro.
Global. It's
Like
global. It's
it's
global.
global. Like
It's
it's taking over.
it's
So
starting to get like it's. I think they're doing a great job of building guys. Like the whole bloodline, the fact that you were able to, and I kind of felt that's where they were going to go with put Solo in charge and kind of reestablish the group with a group of younger, well, not really younger, but younger guys, newer talent. Like, but man, like those dudes came in and made an impact. So good, like, and then you got the natural. You're gonna have what do you call it, Roman, and the Usos will probably come back, and then whoever knows. Um, but like it's just really good. And yeah, some people who didn't experience the WCW night wars, like who maybe were younger and didn't get a chance. I mean, it was wild. It was absolutely insane. Like wrestling was so popular. I was in college in 1999, and everybody watched wrestling. Everybody. It was everywhere. Now it was in Canada, so WWF was way more bigger than WCW, but WCW still sold out when it came. They came
right.
here a couple times. It was like, yeah, they sold out. So it was wrestling was so popular, and I think it's getting that way. I don't know if it's like the competition thing isn't there necessarily. Like you have a lot of wrestling available. That's the thing now is there's a lot to watch. Like if you don't like WWE or you don't like AEW, you got TNA, you got a bunch of other MLWs around, a bunch of, or you got independents. Like there's so much more wrestling because of the internet. You can do much more with it. But I think to get back to, I mean, they're mainstream. They're really mainstream now. I mean, but the product's getting a bit of an edge again. I think like even
Yeah.
we're not going over the line, but like the McIntyre versus like look at the McIntyre versus Punk story. Like they're not going to touch until they meet in the ring. Like actually have a match. That's what you're building for. That's like old school. Like 2 years ago, WWE would have paid it off on a Raw because it was like, I think now it's like they're definitely long-term storytelling is back. Like people are talking about Cody Rhodes and like, well, he's not really exciting right now, but like, dude, he's gonna get involved in the Bloodline storyline. He's still got Punk, he's still got McIntyre, he's still got Roman, he's still got The Rock, he's still got all these guys you can feud with. There's a lot of time for him, and they're just constantly building talent. So I definitely think it's on fire, and we'll get back to talking about it for sure. But it was a great episode. Great to be back. Thanks to anyone who listens and watches. We appreciate it. And everyone, I think we're going to be moving the time during the summer because, like I said, I'm working my tail off to pay. I
Hey,
got bills to pay.
we all got to get bills paid. No.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be around. It might be Tuesdays going forward, but we'll keep you updated. But thanks to everyone who listens, everyone who supports. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate y'all for coming out. Like, share, subscribe. Like we always say, thank you for this week. But come back and see us next week.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Peace.